Story number 2, we're going to go to John Fakler. John Fakler, this is a story coming on Miami Herald. I'll read you the headline for a couple graphs, and I want you to comment. Here we go with the headline. Rusty Pelican owners are opening restaurant in a Fort Lauderdale park. Anybody knows what the Rusty Pelican is? It is a restaurant that is located on an island right off of the mainland of Greater Downtown Miami. It's on the way over to Key Biscayne. And what the restaurant's known for is it's effectively a 2-story building, but it fronts the bay and it fronts the beautiful skyline of Greater Downtown Miami. People go there. It does brunches. It does all kinds of events, celebrations, things like that. So now this group is trying to go up into Fort Lauderdale. So, Mr. Fakler, you spent a lot of time living in Broward County, so I figured you'd be the perfect person for this. So let me go ahead and read for a couple graphs, and I want you to comment, Mr. Fakler. The owners of the Rusty Pelican restaurant near Key Biscayne are expanding to a riverfront spot in the up-and-coming downtown Fort Lauderdale. Specialty Restaurant Corporation will bring a new restaurant at the Hyzanga Park, according to the company in Fort Lauderdale Downtown Development Authority. Hyzanga Park, named for the late owner of the Miami Dolphins of Blockbuster Video, is in the first block of East Los Olas Boulevard on the New River, across from the Fort Lauderdale Art Museum, and walking distance in the street's bustling retail and restaurant district. And the story goes on to say, the restaurant's part of a $15 million investment to renovate the 3.6-acre site, also known as Hyzanga Park. Despite the Rusty Pelican's ownership, the new place won't carry the well-known name, which graces restaurants on Biscayne Bay and Tampa Bay. The new restaurant will be named Sweetwaters, a concept company first tried to launch along the Miami River. Sweetwaters will replace an amphitheater at Hyzanga Park. The 3-story, 12,700 square foot restaurant will have an additional 5,800 square feet of outdoor space. Mr. Fakler, my question to you is, Fort Lauderdale is very distinct. It likes to play it off like it's separate from Miami. But I will remind you, there was an open-air mall that was very similar to Coco Walk in Miami. There's now currently a place called The Wharf, which is mimicked or mirrored after the wharf that we have in Miami. And now we have Rusty Pelican going up that way. Mr. Fakler, why don't you give us your take on it? Rusty Pelican, A, is it needed in downtown Fort Lauderdale? And B, is Fort Lauderdale simply taking the ideas of Miami and trying to incorporate it into what they do, or it just reflects that maybe they're running out of ideas as to what's hip and what's cool? What say you, Mr. Fakler?
Well, what's interesting about this particular situation is this is the group, the Rusty Pelican group. It's not the unit. What they're proposing to open in Fort Lauderdale is called Sweetwater. Now, it's a concept that was originally reported on by the Herald. They had signed a lease for waterfront property on the Miami River in 2021. Some reason it didn't materialize. That particular mall now, I believe it hosts a Chick-fil-A, which is not exactly upscale, although I love the chicken. And, that's the first question I have, because they never really explained it. I went to their website, what Sweetwater means. This particular group has restaurants and bars all over the country, California here. They have a Rusty Pelican in Tampa. All right. They got one in Miami. So why are they not naming this one in Fort Lauderdale? Just call it the Rusty Pelican in Fort Lauderdale. Apparently this park where they are going to renovate and have the restaurant, Hyzanga Park it's called, was originally designed for office workers, because don't forget, there was a lot of office workers there. They needed a place to go. But I guess with all the remote working now, office spaces are plenty. So they're redesigning this whole concept to cater to the many thousands of apartments in the area. So now they're moving the concept to, okay, we want this as a destination, restaurants, shops. I mean, they've already got one with the riverfront in Fort Lauderdale. So I'm not really sure, exactly what's at play here. And again, is this whole idea going to go, what happened in Miami? I mean, was there an issue with the lease itself? Was it too expensive? Why did that go sideways? Because there was never any follow-up to the Herald story. So I don't know really what happened with that.
And Mr. Fakler, just a follow-up question before we go on to our next piece. You're somebody who lived in Broward for quite some time. People I speak to are from Fort Lauderdale. I've been down here quite some time. They're very confident about who they are, their personality, and what Fort Lauderdale is. Why do so many restaurant or concepts from Miami? Why do they go to Broward County? Is Fort Lauderdale the little brother, or are they actually strong enough to stand on their own? Speaking from a Broward perspective, Mr. Fakler.
I think they're strong enough to stand on their own, but they've always tried to differentiate themselves from Miami. And that may be why they have this new concept and why the name and not Rusty Pelican. Maybe they don't want to be associated with it for some reason, even though it's the same group. But yeah, I think they could stand on their own. I think there's the Fort Lauderdale riverfront is pretty successful. They haven't had crime issues, for example, as Miami has had. They have a very similar mix of restaurants and destinations as this Heisinger Park is proposed. So yeah, I think they could. Think they could stand on their own. They don't need. I mean, I don't see what the problem is of using the Rusty Pelican brand. And I'm not sure exactly why the Sweetwater, which I always thought was ironic, Sweetwater on the Miami River. It's kind of an oxymoron. But
Sweetwater means simply freshwater. You're saying, why are you saying it'd be an oxymoron for?
Well,
Miami River.
Not exactly known. The Miami River is not exactly known as clean. I mean, it's, but that's just my. It's